Hello everybody and welcome back to Sai Knows the Score. And we have just had more unpredictable results, haven't we? And again, it's so difficult for people to predict. And so if you are someone who likes to dabble and put the odd acca on, it's really difficult at this moment in time, isn't it? So maybe your best bet is to look at the bet builders and go for shots on targets as opposed to doing actual score results or predictions in themselves, because wow, it has been so difficult this year, hasn't it? But look, we're still in second place overall in the standings that I'm currently in. I was leading for most of the season, just lost it last couple of weeks, but we'll get it back now. Might have to take a slightly different approach here going into this final running, given how unpredictable the league is. So look, game week 31 is a little bit smaller. We've got 8 games this week due to the Carabao Cup final, so we have no Arsenal and we have no Man City, but Arsenal did play previously and we've already gone through that prediction previously, so that's all good from last week. Now let's get into it with the 8 games for game week 31, kicking things off at the Vitality Stadium between Bournemouth and Manchester United, which is a bit of an interesting one because Bournemouth have actually gone 9 undefeated in the Prem. They've got 3 wins and 6 draws in that time. They've only lost twice at home all season. That was against Arsenal and Everton, both of which are top 2 or 3 in the away statistics. And look, they've had 3 0-0s in the last 4 games, and they've not actually really conceded as many goals these days. Whereas the first half of the season, they were scoring and conceding a tremendous amount. But it's completely flipped on its head, hasn't it? Now, with Manchester United, similarly to Bournemouth, they've only lost 1 in the last 9. So out of the 18 games between these two teams, there's only been 1 defeat. So 2 teams that don't really know how to lose as of recently. Now, away form wise, they are 7th overall at Manchester United, and look, did recently lose to 10-man Newcastle, which of course is a great shame for Michael Carrick because he was on such a good run at that time. It's one of those in that Newcastle, sometimes St James Park can do that to you, and it is what it is. Now, overall, since Carrick has been there, it's the only game that he has lost. They've looked a lot better performance-wise, haven't they? And that's the up for Manchester United. So yes, it is a tough one to predict. And look, maybe you look at Manchester United or draw, given that Bournemouth do draw a lot. They don't really lose at home either. I mean, my gut says draw here, as Bournemouth can create any team's problem too. I mean, even in these 0-0 draws that they've been having, they've had reasonably big chances, but it's just that quality, isn't it, in the final third? Obviously, Semenyo going may have impacted that. So I'm going to stick with my gut feeling on this, given 2 teams that don't really lose, and go 1-1 to be the final score. Brighton versus Liverpool, and well, Brighton's form has improved recently, winning 3 and losing 1 in the last 4. And, well, really, if we're being honest, they probably shouldn't have even lost that game to Arsenal. I thought they were definitely the better team. But dirty tactics from Arsenal, using the dark side of the game, got them through that one, didn't they? Look, Brighton, as we know, very inconsistent this season. That's why they are, I believe, 11th at this time, from what I'm seeing here. So their home form initially, which was a big thing for them, they've gone so long unbeaten. It was like 6 months, wasn't it? It has slipped a little bit in 2026. They've now lost 3 this season, which I know doesn't sound horrific, does it? But considering they've gone so long without losing, they've had 3 fairly recently. Now, Liverpool had a fairly comfortable, well, it was a comfortable win, wasn't it, in the Champions League in the second leg against the team we do not like to discuss in Galatasaray. Being a Leeds fan, if you don't know the history of it, do look it up from when we played them in Europe as well. Now, Brighton, look, it's a tricky one. Again, Liverpool, defensively, they do need to be better. They are 9th in this statistic in the league defensively. And I've actually conceded more goals than Brighton actually this season. They've conceded 4 more than Brighton, which is an interesting stat to read. Liverpool are 8th in the away table, losing just as many as they've won, with 6 wins and 6 defeats away from home. Now, Brighton are 11th in both home and away, so on paper this should be a Liverpool win. just, maybe, maybe not. But Liverpool's inconsistent nature, and Brighton have drawn 6 times at home already this season, makes me think draw again. Plus, Brighton do have a tendency to play well against Liverpool in the league. Against Liverpool, they've actually... Liverpool haven't beaten Brighton at the Amex since May 2022. So we've come to almost 4 years there, which I know is only 3 games, isn't it? But still, when you put years in there, it does sound a lot longer. So I'm going to stick with my initial gut. And based on the statistics we've gone through, I'm going to go 1 goal for Brighton and 1 goal for Liverpool. Fulham versus Burnley. And maybe the most insignificant game of the game week, if we're being completely honest, and that's no disrespect to either team here. Look, Fulham are another highly inconsistent team, capable of going on runs of wins and then losses. I mean, look, they are safe in the Prem, and only 4 points off 7th placed Brentford, which you expect will be the Conference League spot. I don't think they're able really to get that spot, if we're being honest, just because it's too inconsistent. Burnley, on the flip side, are trying to an extent, but they just lack that quality. As we know all season, they lack that quality. And now they're actually fighting to not finish bottom of the Prem, which is quite mad considering where the gap between Wolves and Burnley only 2 or 3 months ago. Now, they are capable of getting a draw away at Fulham, but I just think Fulham are due to win again now. They've gone 3 without a win, and I feel like this is going to be the one. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for Fulham and a nice little clean sheet on top as a bonus. Everton versus Chelsea. And Everton lost against Arsenal. No shame to that, is there? Look, we know Everton have been very good away from home, but then if you're at home, they are 14th in the home table. That's something to consider here. I mean, a win here could see them slip into a European spot should Brentford lose. Now, when we look at Chelsea, a comfortable win for PSG in the end. If we're all being completely honest, I personally thought as well that the performance-wise, they were arguably better than PSG over the 2 legs. I know that's a crazy thing to say, considering it was 8-2 on aggregate. I just think PSG's quality did shine through in front of goal there, and Chelsea just lacked it there. They were just so wasteful at times in both legs. Look, back onto the Premier League. Away from home, Chelsea are also very good. So both teams are very good away from home, and Chelsea are actually second in the away table at the moment. So look, Everton not great at home and Chelsea good away, but will their Champions League hangover be a thing? Perhaps it could be. I don't think it will be though, and I am going to go with a Chelsea win here, a narrow 2-1 victory to Chelsea. Leeds versus Brentford, and let me just have a very quick, or hopefully quick rant about the refs, because look, we don't like to use refs as an excuse, do we? And I'm sure when you come to your own personal feelings about refs for your team, everyone thinks the ref is bad, don't they, for their team. It's just football. Everyone thinks it's worse for their team, but I'm trying to be non-biased here when I say this, but the refs have been so bad recently. I mean, we knew they're bad anyway, but these last 3 games for Leeds, it's so irritating, frustrating. Look, they can write apologies and say apologies all they want, PGMOL, but what's that going to do? It's not helping us, is it, anyway? Regardless of the refs, we should have done better in these last couple of matches, especially the Sunderland one. A bit unlucky with the Palace one. Look, DCL scores that, then of course maybe going to win the game. You probably don't go down to 10 men, and it looks a bit better, don't you? You've got a couple more points there. But look, 0-0. You've got a full half with 10 men. Can't really, be too negative on that, can you, overall? But look, yeah, it's under the lights again for Leeds. We know Leeds are generally quite good under lights. Look, I had back-to-back defeats under lights recently against City and Sunderland. Again, arguably deserved a draw against City and should have beaten Sunderland. I mean, their only chance of the game was a penalty from a stupid handball by Ampadu. So look, I'm thinking here, performance-wise, we'll be okay. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has just got a call-up for England, which again, can instill that confidence, maybe get him back up and running in terms of goal scoring. He's only scored 2 in the last 11 games, which isn't amazing, but hopefully this will give him a new lease of life. Don't want lice, do you? Because wow, yeah, that's a bit of a nuisance to try and get rid of. But look, that could help him here as well with confidence boost. So Brentford have won 6, drawn 1, and lost 8 away from home. So they don't really draw away from home, do they? And look, it's been a much better second half of the season away from home. That's for sure, because I remember back in end of November, beginning of December, I was saying how Brentford's away form was terrible, but the home form's amazing. But it's kind of bounced out a little bit now, hasn't it? And they're fairly similar in both statistics. Now, in terms of the last 8 away games, just to back up this further, they're actually second in the away table in the last 8 games with 16 points, only behind Arsenal 18, so averaging 2 points per game in the last 8. But, of course, still susceptible to dropping points against teams. Maybe you wouldn't expect them to. They did draw 2-2 with Wolves on the Monday Night Football, didn't they? So, yeah, it's a bit of a tough one to predict, as I see Leeds maybe getting the better of Brentford in terms of the performance on the night and in the game. It's under the lights as well. I think that will be definitely a big thing. You've got to have the Leeds fans there. It's Saturday night. Everyone's going to be out drinking the whole day. The atmosphere is probably going to be electric. And so, yeah, look, it's either going to be a win or lose, isn't it, for either team, where draw feels fairly unlikely. I'm going to go in favour of Leeds. I can see an argument for Brentford, but I'm going to stick with Leeds, and I'm going to go 2-1 to the Whites. Newcastle versus Sunderland, and surprisingly, this is arguably not the biggest game of the weekend, unless of course you are a Newcastle or Sunderland fan. Now, Newcastle were pummeled by Barca in that second half, and I mean that first half was a bit of a delight to watch. It was very entertaining, wasn't it? And then, yeah, they kind of just collapsed in the last couple of minutes, didn't they? Conceded that penalty 3-2, and then Barca just went rampant, didn't they? And just scored. Rafinha, who I absolutely adore, best Leeds player I've seen live in a Leeds shirt, which isn't, I suppose, saying much considering my first home game was probably like 2001, maybe 2002. So I started in the better years for Leeds and then didn't. But look, Rafinha is next level gravy. Should have been a Ballon d'Or winner too. So look, Newcastle expected to lose that game. It is what it is. Could this affect them going into this game? Absolutely. It was obviously a bit of a... I don't know how to describe it. I suppose a bit of a headbanger. It was really disappointed, weren't they, that they conceded 7 goals in that game. But it is what it is. Now, looking at Newcastle's home form too, they are 9th in the table due to goal difference. They are tied with 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. So there's 4 teams that are on the same points in the home table. But we'll say 9th because of the goal difference. Now, it's with Sunderland, it's probably a real good time to be playing Newcastle based on everything that's just happened. They are, you'd imagine, safe in the Prem at this point and can almost relax now. However, you got the people in the club such as Xhaka, whose mentality will be for them to be push on and look at Europe. They're only 4 or 5 points behind out the Brentford. So why not? Why not try and do something here? Yes, they have been missing a few players, which could impact them as well. But yeah, look, the last time these two played, it was a poor spectacle, wasn't it? Especially for the neutral. Not a lot happened. I don't envision this being a whole lot better, but surely it has to be better. I can see a draw playing out here, but I don't know. This is one of those in the Champions League. You don't know how it's going to affect Newcastle. I'm going to say, being at home, it will be a positive atmosphere. The fans will get behind them, and I think this will be a 2-1 victory to Newcastle. Aston Villa versus West Ham. And Villa are through to the next round of the Europa League, and West Ham will be grateful to be playing Villa after a European night, I am sure. Look, the Aston Villa fans won't be happy and aren't happy with the ticket prices for the next European game, but that's a story for another day. Villa have won 4 and lost 3 in the last 8 home matches, so you can see they are susceptible to losing at home, especially recently. They are 15th in the form table over the last 8 games, period. So not a great statistic, especially when you are fighting for that top 4 or 5 Champions League places, which could be top 4 based on the coefficient rankings because everyone's getting knocked out, aren't they, apart from Liverpool. So yeah, something to consider. Look, if the teams do well in the Conference League and Europa League, that might be enough. West Ham on the flip side are 7th in the form table, having played some tough games recently. They got over the line with a draw against City. They had 1 shot and 1 goal in the whole match. Fair play. Look, they were defensively solid and City were definitely struggling to break them down, but still 1 shot, 1 goal. Yeah, it is still lucky, isn't it, on paper, so fair play. This is a very winnable game for West Ham, and right now, given Villa's form, West Ham's performance improvements, yeah, you can definitely see a tight game, but I am thinking West Ham will draw. You know, it may take another Rodgers wonder goal to help Villa, as I think West Ham will be the better team here, and they'll have no fear. If Villa's out, then that could be the biggest blow to West Ham's chances in this game. If Villa's out, you are thinking draw or Villa. I'm still going to go with West Ham. I'm going to do something here, one way or another. I'm going to split it down the middle, and I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Bit of a Desmond then. 1-1 to the final score. Last but not least, and this is maybe the biggest game of the game week, given what is on the line in the relegation battle, where Spurs are very much in the thick of it. And what a game it will be. Now, Spurs with a decent performance against Atletico, but it wasn't enough yet to win in the Prem still in 2026, which is definitely something to consider. Bottom of the home table period this season with 10 points in total, which is shocking. Only scored 18 at home and will need that clinical edge they had against Atletico again here, because Forest don't usually concede too many, but nor do they score many. Again, something to factor in here. Now, it was a long game for Forest, eventually winning on penalties. They did rest their best players, but did come on in the 60th minute, so ended up playing for an hour, so maybe more than what Pereira's maybe hoping for. They got 1 less day's rest too, and were away from homework there at Midtjylland, so that means travelling, getting back, and even that in itself can be a little bit of fatigue. Yeah, obviously this is a must-win for both sides, and very much looking forward to watching this one. Who wins them? You know, Forest are just as good away as they are at home, but that's not really saying a whole lot. Spurs aren't good at home, are they? Again, fatigue's a play factor here. I mean, Spurs, you can't really complain about fatigue as much as Forest, can you? So you can't have that factored in for Spurs right now. From a Leeds perspective, draw of Spurs is probably the best outcome, as Forest have more games due to Europe and struggle to score as well, with only 28 goals in the 30 matches played so far this season in the Prem. So I'm going to go with a draw here. Yeah, I think 1-1 to be the final score, just because Spurs struggle at home, and that's got to be definitely at the forefront of the thinking here. 1-1 to be the final score. Of course, Spurs to go down would be the thing that probably most people are gunning for from a humour perspective. It would just be pure comedy. If Spurs were to go down this season, it'd be something that Spurs fans would never really be able to live down for a number of years, if ever. So yeah, ideally Spurs go down, don't we? Just for that. But thanks again everybody for watching. If you haven't already, drop a like, subscribe, and comment your predictions below, and any thoughts and feelings on the season. The relegation battle, for example. What are your thoughts on that? Who goes down? Who stays up? How many points will it take to remain in the Prem this year, where it's all so tight? Thanks again for watching. Take care, have a great weekend, and we will see you after the international break at this point, won't we? All the best. Bye for now.